Alright, this video is going to be about the digestive system. So I need you to have the sheet that I gave you in class to fill out alongside of this. It looks like this. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch animation to go along with this worksheet. And the first organ that we're going to talk about is the mouth. Okay, so this is the animation. We're going to start. This animation has a bunch of different food options. I'm going to choose the beans because the beans are what we call a power food. We've got carbs, lipids, and fats in them. So I'm going to choose beans. I'm going to say that I'm hungry. All right, here's the mouth. In the mouth, you're going to see a bunch of chewing. And so we need to talk about what's the difference between chemical and mechanical digestion. All right. In the mouth, we see that saliva is produced, contains an enzyme which starts to break down starch. So in the mouth, we know that it's carbohydrates that are broken down. So before we continue, let's go to our notes and let's write down that carbs are broken down into simple sugars. So I want you to write down this. Carbs are broken down into simple sugars. Now, I talked about an enzyme. An enzyme is called salivary amylase. That is the name of the sugar that's found in your saliva. So now let's go back and we chew our food, which makes it into smaller. The saliva here has this enzyme. I'm going to call it salivary amylase right now. See how starch is pretty big? I'm going to hit OK, and you see starch broken down into something smaller. Smaller diffuses. Remember, starch was too big to diffuse. Those are simple sugars. So let's go back to the note sheet. We have carbs broken down into simple sugars. Salivary amylase is used. And then two things happened, mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Mechanical is breaking down into smaller pieces. That is your chewing. Let me write that down. And chemical digestion is using enzymes to break down into a different molecule. For example, salivary amylase broke down starch and made it into a simple sugar. It literally converted it into a different molecule. The next organ we're going to talk about is the esophagus. So I'm going to show you the animation really quickly. The esophagus is the tube that connects the mouth to the stomach. You're going to see your food go down. Done. All right, so let's talk about what happened there. It's very fast, I know. So no digestion occurred, and food travels down the esophagus. There were no enzymes used. But something we're going to talk more about in class is called peristalsis. And that's the muscular movement to push food down. Food doesn't go down as fast as it did in that animation. And in fact, it gets pushed down, sort of like how you push toothpaste down a tube of toothpaste. So it's a muscular movement to help push food down. We're going to see this word twice, here and in the small intestine. It's just muscular contractions. Now we're going to talk about the stomach. Everyone associates the stomach with where a lot of digestion occurs, and that's actually not true. The stomach is only where one molecule is digested. Let's see if you can figure it out. So I'm going to zoom in. See, we have some digestive juices made up with one enzyme. It's very acidic in the stomach. We're going to write that down as well. Hit OK. All right, look here. Only proteins are broken down in the stomach. Proteins are very big. Okay, so do you remember what they're broken down into? Proteins are made up of, all right, so did you say amino acids? Because that's correct. This enzyme we're going to call pepsin. So let's go back to our sheet and say proteins are broken down into amino acids. Pepsin is the enzyme used. Now here's a new vocab word for you, protease. We're going to learn that anything that ends in aces, anything that ends in an ASE is considered an enzyme. And protease, that prefix pro sounds like protein, and that's the prefix tells you what it's going to break down. Proteases break down protein. So that's what I'm going to have you write down in other. The proteases is the enzyme that breaks down protein. Let's also add the stomach is acidic. Stomach is very acidic, and that has an immune function that we'll talk about in class. All right, so we're still in the stomach. The proteins are going to be broken down into amino acids, so hit OK. We're seeing them being made into something smaller. Okay? So now food's going to leave the stomach and it's going to go to the small intestine. It's the next thing we're going to go to. Small intestine is made up of 3 different sections: the duodenum, the ileum, and the jejunum. And so we're just going to talk about 2 of the sections. We're going to talk about the duodenum right now. Here's where all of the digestion occurs, the most digestion in the whole body system. So let's zoom in, and this is my favorite part of the animation. And so what we see here is we see starch. That's big. Your mouth, when you're chewing, you're not chewing for very long, so you're not digesting all of that starch. Then over here, we see proteins. So the stomach doesn't digest all of the protein, okay? So now something else I want you to point out is that the starch enzyme and the protein enzyme are different. Enzymes are very specifically shaped and can only break down what they are for, okay? So I'm going to say that again. Proteins are very, very specifically shaped and can only break down specifically what they are for. So let's watch. We're going to see starch breaking down the sugar, those simple sugars. The protein is broken down to amino acids. Now here is the fat. Fat, first of all, has to be mechanically broken down. And from the mouth, that means something like chewing, just breaking it down into smaller pieces. Bile, which we're going to write down is made by the liver, is not an enzyme. What it does is it breaks down fats mechanically. Okay? Breaks them into smaller pieces so then enzymes can act on them. So let's look. Bile. So let's watch this. Acts on the fats. Now these fat droplets can now be made digested by the fat enzyme. We'll hit OK. And now they're broken down to fatty acids. Okay? So let's go to the digestive system. Small intestine. Lipids were broken down into fatty acids. Proteins were broken down into amino acids. And carbs were broken down into simple sugars. So fill that out on your sheet. Now let's look at the enzymes. Lipases. That was the enzyme that broke down fats. Aces are enzymes. The lipase, the beginning of it sounds like lipid, and that's what it breaks down. Amylases break down sugars. Proteases, again, break down proteins. So write those three things down. We're going to go back to the animation to go to the second part of the small intestine, ileum. I love this part. So here we have nothing big. Everything's been digested. So now it's small enough to diffuse. Okay? So remember in the state lab where starch didn't diffuse but glucose did. So now everything can diffuse into the bloodstream. And these little structures here are the villi, which connects to the circulatory system. So you see them, they're just grabbing all of the nutrients and they're absorbing it into the digestive system. Now if you read here, it says what left behind is undigested waste. That's your fecal material, largely made up of roughage and water. That is going to be part of the large intestine. So we're actually going to go back to our notes and finish the small intestine notes. Now again, a word, peristalsis. That's the movement of the food through your small intestines. So it's a muscular movement to push food down through the intestines, just like it did the esophagus. And it's important, all the small nutrients were absorbed through the villi, which is a connection to the circulatory system. Okay, a couple other structures we have to talk about. The liver, write down that it's an accessory organ. Accessory organs are organs that don't necessarily come in contact with the food, but they put something into the digestive system that the digestive system needs. So for example, we said that the liver makes the bile. It's going to make the bile and secrete the bile. So nothing is digested here. It just secretes the bile into the small intestine. Bile is not an enzyme, so it makes the bile, and the bile helps break down the fats mechanically because it's not an enzyme, so it didn't break it down chemically. Another structure that was not in the animation but we need to mention is the gallbladder. The gallbladder is again an accessory organ. Nothing is digested there. And what it does is it stores the bile. The liver connects to the gallbladder, and the gallbladder actually stores the bile. And then finally, the pancreas. Pancreas is our last of the accessory organ. Nothing is digested there, but it secretes lipases, proteases, and amylases into the small intestine. So it's actually going to make the majority of the enzymes. So it's going to make your lipases, your amylases, and your proteases. Okay, it's going to make them and put them into the small intestine. All right, last but not least, we're going to talk about the large intestine. So let's watch the food finish going through the small. All right, the colon is the first part of the large intestine. So let's zoom in. All right, the liquid of undigested waste arrives in the colon. So you can see the fecal material here and you can see the water droplets. Something that's not in this animation that's in here is a ton of bacteria. And so when we talk about like probiotics in class and the good bacteria, you have hundreds of species of bacteria that live inside of you and on you, and a lot of them help in your digestive system. They can break down materials that we can't. And so this helps us get a lot of our vitamins out of the food. So you need bacteria in our digestive system. And where they live is in the large intestine. But also you're going to see a lot of water be absorbed here. So you're going to see a bunch of water going back into the bloodstream. Okay? If too much water is absorbed, you can become constipated. And if too little water is absorbed, that's where you can have diarrhea. So the bacteria help in regulating that as well. So if you continue down to the bottom, you're going to see your feces go through your large intestine, and then it's going to be stored in the anus. The anus is the last part of the large intestine. That's where it's stored until you go to the bathroom. So it just kind of sits there. If you're regular, we talked about this in class, you would go to the bathroom once a day, and if you're really regular, it'd be the same time of day. And so this is all of the undigested waste. We couldn't digest it. It can't do anything for us. It's a lot of our fiber. It helps clean out our digestive system, and it just gets released, so it's expelled, and that's you going to the bathroom. Okay, so now let's go back to our large intestine. Again, nothing is digested there. It's all done in the small intestine. However, vitamins and water are reabsorbed. And we also mentioned that it's the bacteria helps to release with these, and water is absorbed here. So let's kind of write that down again. And that is the digestive system. So we'll bring this to class, and we're going to be kind of adding things to it.